a few days after it was reported that Philadelphia ended trade talks with James Harden, the 10-time All-Star, he ripped 76ers president Daryl Morey during a media event in China. Here's the clip.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
Let me say that again for the people in the back, or for you to get your phone out and really get a good recording of this. Yes, Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be part of an organization that he's a part of. That is what James Harden said. That had Twitter going crazy. My man Trey Kirby out of the woodwork. The tweets were flying from TK, dropping zinger after zinger. But yeah, this is obviously pretty rare to see a player, a really, really good player, just say, my GM's a liar, I'm never playing for him, and just drop that bomb and see what happens. So your thoughts here on this latest development?
I mean, honestly, great promo for the trade requester 7s that Adidas is dropping. Guy went to China and went not once but twice at Daryl Morey, a guy who helped make James Harden's career and vice versa. These two are like tied together, so it's honestly a little bit sad for me to see Harden going at Morey like this, but that's why he's the GOAT, greatest of all time trade requesters. He's had more opportunities than basically anybody, and he keeps pulling things out of the bag that you wouldn't expect. Like, everybody's thinking Harden is going to make things uncomfortable. He said just the same on his Instagram stories not too long ago.
Right.
We know Morey has said in the past that he's comfortable being uncomfortable, but everybody just kind of thought Harden would give up or come back to camp in September and not give it his all. Going to a place where Daryl Morey is widely disliked and trashing him with many cameras around, basically just to get his point out, nobody expected that.
No. Yeah, does he do this if it's in Japan? Or is he playing the crowd here where China hates him? But it is in response to what Daryl Morey said this past weekend. I don't think if Daryl Morey says this past weekend, if he doesn't come out and say, we're taking James Harden off the trade market, this doesn't happen. Harden, this was in direct response to that.
Oh, do you think Harden is calling Morey a liar in reference to that?
No, I don't. But
you think it has to do with obviously, I'm going to take a pay cut so you can go get more players, and then when I do that for you, you're going to pay me back with a fat extension, which then, in theory, he turned his back on.
Yeah, that was where this stems from, for sure.
Okay.
But it was instigated this past weekend. It was flared up.
Sure,
there was a barb thrown this past weekend that James Harden did not like, and so Harden threw it back. It's deeper into the domestic dispute here. So yeah, Harden had this card in his back pocket. Maybe he was going to use it, maybe he wasn't. And executives make promises at times, but yeah, it never blows up in this way.
No.
And so, yeah, it's good to go back on the timeline just to understand what happened. Summer of 2022. So last summer, Harden could have come into this past season with a $47 million contract. They decide, we'll rip it up. We'll do a 1-1. We'll sign for $34 million with a player option for this coming season. So, all those rumors this past season of him maybe going to Houston come about, and then he gets to the offseason. He could say, I'm going to be a free agent. He could say, no problem. I'm not opting in. But before free agency, he opted in to $34 million this coming season. He could have played the market. He could have been one of the free agents alongside Fred VanVleet. Those are the big names. Chris Middleton, Kyrie. He kind of wanted the best of both worlds. He wanted to be able to either opt in and sign an extension or just sign a huge deal right away. But he decided, I'll play that card and hopefully get traded. So he wanted everything. I think his agent is partly to blame for this in thinking that he could get a huge deal, or they could have created that Houston leverage themselves during the year, and I think the agent is partly to blame because this is a terrible time to be a free agent. It's just a horrible situation. So, what did Morey lie about? Did he say we're going to give you a max deal? We're going to give you a long-term deal? Executives do say stuff. He could have lied, but I think there's sort of an understanding in this biz that things do change. And it's kind of difficult to give James Harden benefit of the doubt right here, right now, because he is the greatest trade requester of all time.
I think he might be referencing both things when it comes to calling Daryl Morey a liar. One, the first one, the obvious one, and we talked about it at the time, is I'm guessing, we don't know the exact details, but you have to assume Morey agreed to give Harden a bigger deal, a juicy deal, this summer after taking a pay cut last offseason. And then he's reneged on that, okay? That's part one. That makes sense to me. And then maybe it is Morey agreeing to trade Harden after he opted in. And now, like you said, recently, reports are, oh, we're not doing that. We're taking his name off the trade requests and all that. Like, it both could be true here, which has maybe then really inspired James Harden saying, fuck this. He's lied to me twice now. Maybe, but that's sort of how I read this timing of it all for sure.
It's interesting because, I mean, we recorded on Thursday and they said, we're going to be talking again at some point. And then over the weekend it was, we're done with trade talks. So I kind of lean towards it's more on the trade aspect of things rather than the max contract thing. Because if Harden really wanted to, if Morey said something, he could completely submarine the 76ers. That's not allowed. It happened to the Timberwolves years and years ago with Joe Smith. They could void his deal. They could take all their first round picks, and then Philadelphia is really screwed. So the timing of it suggests it's probably more about the trades, but we've seen the kind of wink-wink deals happen all the time. Richard Jefferson got one from the Spurs like 1 billion years ago. So it's probably all things added up, but once Morey came out and said he's coming to camp, Harden said, ain't no way I'm coming to camp. Get this deal done.
I do think Daryl Morey still wants to trade him. He would be happy to trade him, and I think this is just a maneuver with other teams in the NBA by air quotes, taking him off the market to try and bump up his value a little bit, to try and get some offers, to try and get a decent offer, because he doesn't want to go into next season with James Harden on the roster.
Oh, he can't now.
Well,
they can't. He can't. He honestly cannot do this. I mean, he did it with Ben Simmons, but they're two different beasts, Ben Simmons and James Harden, as we're seeing here.
But I think even on Saturday when he said, I'm taking him off the market before James Harden called him a liar, he didn't want to go into next season with the same team. He wants to improve this team. He wants to be able to say, Joel Embiid, give me a year. Give me a year. Harden's contract is up. Tobias Harris' contract's up. You've got a growing maxi. Maybe we could get somebody else in the free agent market. Maybe. Your Cameroonian brother is coming up on his contract. Pascal Siakam's available. Now, I'm just throwing out names, but at the same time, he's got to hope that there's something more than this same team. They know what they can do with this team, this exact team of Harden and Tobias Harris and Maxey. And I think the unleashing of Maxey is part of this. You want it. If I'm Daryl Morey, I want to see what Tyrese Maxey can do with a little bit more leash. So he wants to move him. He just wants something back. He just wants something back. And James Harden, again, wants the best of both worlds. He wants to go to L.A., like people want to go to L.A. and play with guys where he is the third best option, where he's got even less of a responsibility to do, of responsibility upon him. So,
what do you think about Brian Windhorst wondering if Harden calling Morey a liar is more than just an insult and actually this sort of intentional leverage play? This idea of like, it's a shot across the bow. It's like, It's like, hey, I could really bring to light, maybe he has receipts, right, of this sort of, hey, wink, wink, little handshake deal here. I'll take the pay cut. We'll go get PJ Tucker and Daniel House Jr., and then, you'll pay me back. Because that's what it was. I
love how people say Daniel House Jr. Like, I mean, they got PJ Tucker. Yeah, I know.
It was the two guys. I mean, he gave up, $14 million?
Yeah, he did.
Right?
Daniel House Jr. was not.
But him saying this and really like calling him a liar is like, you don't want to. Okay, you always say you want to get uncomfortable. Oh man, I'm the best at this at trade requests. I'll call you out, and I could get the league investigating you, get you in trouble, losing draft picks, like the old Joe Smith type of days there. What do you buy that at all, or no?
Harden doesn't have a ton of leverage.
Right.
So creating leverage is probably what he's trying to do, and threatening something that could put the 76ers at even more jeopardy, I suppose, is a way to generate it. His main leverage is that Morey can't jeopardize another season of Joel Embiid's prime unless he wants to deal with Joel Embiid saying he wants out as well. So if he's kind of trying to throw everything in the future up into the air, that's probably the only way Harden can generate any sort of leverage in this scenario. Because like Tass is saying, once he opted in, he threw it all away. He should have just became a free agent. He might have been able to get 3 years, $120 million from the 76ers because they need James Harden. They need to have somebody in that salary slot. There's nobody else they can replace him with. And clearly Morey doesn't want to replace him with like Norm Powell and Robert Covington and whatever scraps they can get from the Clippers.
Yeah. And maybe, again, that gets back to the whole you're a liar thing. Maybe Morey and Harden had talked about that. Hey, opt in, we'll trade you. No, it's like what happened with Chris Paul, obviously, in the Clippers days, moving to the Rockets and all that. Like, hey, we'll get something back at least. It'd be a nice parting way for us to move off of you. We'll try and get you to where you want to go. We'll get something back to help us still try and go for a championship around Joel Embiid. And maybe that is the part that he's like, now he's lying again here. He said he encouraged me maybe to opt in, and we'll be moving you. Don't worry. And now all we're hearing is, we're not moving you. We're probably not going to move you. We might have you back to camp. Maybe that's the liar part too. I could see that.
Well, yeah, but it's also, and I mean, I don't know, from Harden's perspective, he's looking at the Clippers, and that makes sense as a trade piece. They've got younger guys like Terrence Mann. They've got contracts in Morris, Covington, Powell, whoever it may be. They've got picks way in the future that they could trade. So from like an NBA 2K sense, you could put together a trade that actually makes sense. But when you're trying to win a championship in real life, it doesn't make any sort of sense for Daryl Morey to do it. So that's why he's dug in, and Harden thought, I can pick my team. I've done it twice before. It's no problem. There's always somebody waiting for me. Now there's not really anybody waiting for him except for the Clippers, who aren't going to bid against themselves and don't want to completely throw away their team for James Harden.
Yeah, and I just wonder how this affects his future as well. He wants to get another deal, obviously. Does this change the way other teams look at him? Yeah, I think so. Because we're talking about mid-30s James Harden, not Hall of Fame James Harden. This is a different James Harden. Can he lead the league in assists? Sure. But what's the best avenue for him? Play another year with the 76ers and play well and get another deal? Or go get traded for 5 cents on the dollar? And that immediately lowers your value for the next few years, even though he's a Hall of Fame player. It changes the way he's looked at as in the league. So I think it would behoove him to play for a year. It ain't gonna happen because everybody's mad at each other. But I could see Harden walking in, 400 pounds into the Sixers locker room, and just causing a ruckus.
Right.
In September. Nobody wants that. Daryl Morey does not want that, and that's why Daryl Morey's playing this card now, hoping the next 30 days somebody will offer him something, but. Until a deadline happens in the NBA, nothing happens. And that the trade
well, Harden is trying to set the deadline. I mean, he's saying, "I'm not coming. That's my deadline."
Yeah.
But
Morey wants that too.
Morey can call his bluff because there is an interesting part to this. Harden can refuse to report to 76ers training camp, but he might not accomplish a whole lot in doing that because he's set to be a free agent in the summer of 2024. But if he were to sit out this coming season, his free agency would be pushed back because of this, Article 11, Section 3 of the collective bargaining agreement. I'm not going to read you the mumbo jumbo, but it's basically if he holds out, he would be stuck in the same situation next season, still under contract with the 76ers, unless they expressly allowed him to become a free agent. So like him just like sitting out, if Morey really dug in his heels, and he is captain uncomfortable, and Harden just didn't report. It's like that wouldn't actually do him any favors unless so he's almost better off coming and doing the Ben Simmons phone in the pocket.
That's what I'll do.
I don't give a shit, and yeah, I'm gonna make things really uncomfortable for you more. I'm gonna make things uncomfortable for new coach Nick Nurse, obviously Joel Embiid, this entire franchise, and I'll just torpedo it until you get me out of here.
Yeah, he can take it to another level for sure. He can sit out 30 days according to that mumbo jumbo, right?
Yep.
And I think there's even holes in it where you could sit out like a week in September and then sit out a week in November and come back and do some weird stuff. But then he's torpedoing his future in the NBA, really. Like who wants and his future contracts, really. And yeah, the thing is, like the 2024 free agent crop ain't all that juicy. It's pretty similar to what we just saw. Mm-hmm. It's Pascal Siakam, it's Klay Thompson, and then it's. Really, I mean, I can't even because Anthony Davis took himself off of the list. I mean, it's a lot of second tier type guys. So
which is sort of what James Harden is.
Yeah, but he's at the top of that.
Sure,
he's but that's what I'm saying. It's just not a juicy free agent list. Mm-hmm. Again, I mean, he could have been on the top of this one, really. Along with Fred VanVleet.
Is he also, in addition to possibly torpedoing his his next contract with whatever team, his legacy at all. I'm not sure he gives a shit, but you see a lot of blowback to this. Like, this is too far. This guy again. Oh, come on. You're not even at the MVP level you used to be, so now it's really weird to do these shenanigans. Do you have an opinion on that, TK?
I just think this continues his legacy. Harden is already pretty widely disliked unless you are a Houston Rockets fan. That's pretty much the end of it. That's who really likes James Harden, is the Houston Rockets fans. Yeah. He's already known as a kind of a malcontent who will ask for a trade request out of nowhere. He's going to make the Hall of Fame quite easily. He's an MVP. He's got crazy numbers. His number one backer was Daryl Morey. So I don't think this really hurts his legacy, because I don't think there aren't a lot of James Harden fans out there.
That is the strange part of all this. Daryl Morey, the number one James Harden apologist. The guy that would always go to bat for him, that was always saying he's MVP, that hugged him on the tarmac.
That's right, buddy.
The embrace. And now you've got Morey calling him a liar. And then, it seems like a fractured relationship, you'd assume. I can't see them coming back from this. And I don't see Harden going to training camp. And you said the Joel Embiid part, you slipped it in here. That's the whole crazy part of this. It's like, you cannot waste another year. You've already done it. You've done it before with the Ben Simmons saga. You can't do it again. As this guy gets on in his career, is playing at an MVP level, and you're trying to win. And I know this, if anything, this just like leans into your theory that he will not be there for the long run here. I'm talking about Joel Embiid, and he will find his way to another team. You believe that still is happening?
He's never going to finish his career in Philadelphia. So it's just a matter of time. Will it be more or less than a year? Probably more. But who knows? We'll see exactly how it goes. The dissolving of Harden and Morey's relationship, the only thing I could think of that was similar was Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. They were like best friends and business partners for 20 years. Then Will Ferrell wanted to play Jerry Buss in Winning Time, and Adam McKay said, no, we're getting John C. Reilly, another of our good friends, and now these guys aren't friends anymore.
That's very strange.
That was a stupid move by Adam McKay. Completely threw away a relationship over a show that was okay. Weird.
I guess the second season apparently is a lot better, I've heard. I can't speak to that.
Well, it's a second round playoff show, just like the Philadelphia 76ers.
What impact do you think this has on Joel Embiid? We've seen him remove the location in his Twitter bio, his X bio, I guess, today. Philadelphia is gone.
Oh,
Processing
tell me more.
is gone.
Which social platform?
X.
Oh, X.
His X profile.
Oh, his X profile.
X.com.
Oh, okay. Interesting. He's not requesting a trade, I don't think. If that's, I guess that's the only thing you can take from that. Yeah, it's an unfortunate one, isn't it? This whole scenario. I think Morey has to convince him, has to get something back for Harden. It may not be a good player that helps him this season. When he was on radio a mere 3.5 weeks ago, when we talked about this, he was on Philadelphia radio saying we've got to get either a player or something we can turn into a player, because he does care about keeping Joel Embiid happy. There's no doubt, but he's got to keep Joel Embiid happy, as I said a little earlier, for 12 months, and then he can really shake things up with Tobias Harris coming off the books. This whole Harden thing coming off the books. There's lots of money coming off the books where it's 24-25. It's Embiid at $50 million, Tucker at $11 million, and then supporting players. The Maxi's contract will be signed, but really there's like $70 million sort of locked in. So there's lots of wiggle room for 12 months. But yeah, you gotta convince them. And man, that relationship, yeah, it obviously is fractured. It's wild, but I guess if there's anybody that this isn't wild to consider would do, it's James Harden. I mean, it's just the guy who throws stuff away, and I like I kind of like seeing him do it in China. It's on like how he did it, how he's doing it somewhere else, like he's on vacation. It kind of feels like any of us, like we're on vacation. Oh, I feel different, I'm gonna act different. I'm gonna wow out. I'm gonna do something. If he's in North America, I don't think this happens.
He's like zipping around on a scooter over there, and then just calling his GM a liar.
One of the funniest videos, him on the scooter. I love it.
I love people comparing Harden versus Morey to like WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Gorilla Monsoon famously saying, the irresistible force meets the immovable object. And that's what we have here. The standoff between a player who has always gotten his way and does not give a fuck against a GM who thrives under being uncomfortable. He will wait it out, man. He'll have a staring contest with you. He doesn't care. So who comes out victorious, Ed?
Daryl Morey. I have to imagine that the 76ers, as a front office, know the ins and outs of the NBA rulebook better than anybody. Between getting busted for tampering last year with the PJ Tucker,
yep.
Danuel House deal, the Ben Simmons sitting out of training camp last year and figuring out exactly how they were going to be able to find him and that kind of stuff. And now this with the Harden and how he has to play or else his contract just carries over till next year. They're getting into the nitty gritty of it all. They know all the deepest cuts in the rulebook.
That's why, like, if this was like this is a boxing match or whatever, a wrestling match, like, it's like these are two vets here at their masters of their craft is the best way to put it.
Exactly right.
Harden has done this before. He knows the move. Like, I'll show up in the fat suit. I don't care. Like, and then, like you said, you just went through Morey and the Sixers. Like, oh yeah, we do this. We were built for this, man. Like, that's why this is a hell of a battle here. And, I mean, if you're a Sixers fan, though, you gotta be I know you're used to it to some extent, but come on. Here you go again. And it just, like, the stink over their team heading into the season is already palpable. Like, it's like, again, Nick Nurse, I forgot he was the head coach. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, same.
Here you go, sir. Good luck with this one.
Yeah. But think about it. 12 months from now, Tobias Harris' contract ends.
But Taz,
that's amazing.
They're trying to
Nobody
win a
signs
championship
anybody in
now.
free agency anymore. Nobody does, unless you're at Miami or in LA.
And who is signed in Philly?
Fred VanVleet went to the Houston Rockets.
What big
Overpaid.
name?
Yeah.
What big name is signed in Philly?
Well,
Pascal Siakam, who just got rid of Nick Nurse in Toronto?
yeah. That's a decent combo. I'm just saying that things do change pretty damn quick.
Things do change.
Very quick. So it's going to be a rough year if they don't trade him. But Daryl Morey will sit out. He'll chill and trade him for something at some point. And you know that Joel Embiid is good enough to take them to 45 wins. Like, they will be an above 500 team at the deadline. And then they'll add something. And then they'll go into a playoff run, and they won't be contender. But is it much worse going with Tyrese Maxey as your starting point guard and Joel Embiid as your center in this supporting cast than with Harden, and they play a little differently? Like, is it much worse? And they go trade for a part, and they try and do this again next year? I mean, it sucks. Like, Embiid, there is an end of the line with Embiid, for sure. Like, it's going to end at some point.
I think the part you want to avoid, though, as an organization with, at least hopes to compete for a championship with an MVP guy and a new coach and all that, and a young talent in Maxey and some other good pieces, is I do not want another year of heading into the season where every question is about James Harden. When are you going to trade him? Oh, is he showing up at camp? Oh, what did he do this time? Oh my God, he was eating a donut out on the practice court. Like, you don't want that. You can't have that. I mean, I know you could.
They're gonna.
You really think so? You really don't think?
Ideally they want to trade him. Yeah, the thing you want to avoid is one of your best players calling your GM a liar. For sure.
Yeah.
You want to avoid that.
Very true.
Ideally, but it happened. Maybe it was a fake video.
I did see people saying it was AI for a little bit. There was that going around. Any other thoughts on Harden versus Morey and where we go from here and this leverage play and really what's next?
Who could surprise the 76ers with an offer, I guess is a question, right? Like, people will bandy about the Bulls, whether it be Levine included on a trade with a little bit longer contract and more youth, or DeRozan, who's got a deal that kind of matches up with Harden as well. I could see them maybe doing that if they decided that they're going to pull the plug on this era of the team. Portland, I guess, could get in the mix, right? Like, at this point, Morey could be like, fine, we're sending Maxey out, bring in Dame Lillard. We're going all in here. Because Embiid is 30 years old. He's had the best health of his career the past 3 seasons. Who knows how much longer that's going to happen as he gets older in his career. But that's exactly what Morey is hoping for, is that people are seeing the drama here, and he's just hoping somebody else decides to dip in. Because when there's only one team available to trade, you're getting nothing.
Oh, yeah. This is what he did with Ben Simmons. He was able to wait it out until Harden fell on his lap. If Damian Lillard is able to come to Philadelphia, I mean, that's the biggest win. That's a dream scenario. It just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And these months without Harden, like you said, it's different than Ben Simmons. It's going to be way more painful.
Yes.
It's going to be way more way more painful, way more difficult because, Simmons didn't dunk the ball. It seemed like that was the end and that was over. This, they just lost in the second round and that was painful. But that's why that's why Morey made the right call in not signing him long term, and that's why you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's why I kind of have this optimistic view. It's short-sighted, and we can't really evaluate what's in Joel Embiid's head and how much of a leash he still has with this franchise. But why go back and do the exact same thing? You just lost in the second round with a 3-2 lead. You can't sign Harden, so I do think it's a good move not to sign him long-term. But the wink-wink thing did not pay off. I mean, to me, it's a little like the Toronto scenario. Yeah, you lost Fred VanVleet. But do you want to just be a mediocre team again? And this is different because it's Embiid's prime. He's a frickin' MVP. It's painful, man. It is a painful scenario. I do think they really dream of trading him within the next 30 days, so he doesn't show up with the fat suit. That would be ideal. That's the dream, man. But he's a good player. So as Trey said, look, somebody could swoop in and make some sort of trade. But I think his agent partly screwed him. He partly screwed himself here. Waiting out this whole year with the CBA looming. Is there a worse time to be a free agent? I mean, yeah, like you said, not a lot of guys change teams. Only if you've got this monstrous cap room, and they're the ones they're going to have the cap room next year. So I don't think James Harden is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers.
No, probably not.